Okay, so we're recording now. And great, well, thanks everybody for joining us. And this is our kind of interim meeting, and there's dinner. Okay, everyone grab a piece of pizza from our little helpful dog. And
mine has drool on it.
Sorry, I don't know what to say about that. I can't help it. Okay, I'm just trying to admit people now. And moving on down, here are just some meeting instructions. Please keep your microphone on mute unless you wish to ask for a question. And we've been turning videos off, but it's nice to keep them on for a while just to see everybody. But if we start having bandwidth issues, then we can, certainly turn off the videos. But I think we're doing okay right now. And then tonight, what we're going to cover is we'll have our welcome, introductions, updates, and public comment. We're going to take a look, and I hope Bernice is going to join us because I know that she was, she had kind of initiated some edits to the vision statement portion for community character and values. So we'll look at that, and then we'll continue and try to finish up our natural environment, open space, parks, trails, and recreation goals and policies, and talk a bit about the schedule, and then conclude with our next public comment period. So with that, then, would you all like to just go around and introduce yourselves, starting with the committee? I'll start with who I see. I see John Ruggles at the top. But John, you're muted.
There we go. Sorry about that. Not paying attention. John Ruggles, District 2, appointed by Liz Archuleta a few years ago to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And that's enough. I'll keep it brief.
Thanks, John. Monica.
I'm Monica Julian. I have lived in the area for 30 years, ran a construction company in the area for 17 years, and was on the group 20 years ago that wrote the plan that we're working on updating.
Nice, thanks for joining. Next I see Brian Bates.
This is Brian. I'm co-chair along with Rob Wilson, 40-year resident. Want to make a real quick comment that we talked about cleaning up things last week, and I want at the end of our session today have a real short conversation about how we can take that into an action phase instead of just a written phase. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Next I see is a phone number 814-6785.
Yes, Liz Baldwin here, been a resident in Doney. Yeah, hi, Melissa. I made it. Driving back. Been a resident for 27 years, been on this committee since inception about a year and 3 months ago, and I'm trying to participate tonight.
Thanks, Liz. It's so modern.
Yes,
connected by phone. Thank you. Okay, great. Next I see Harriet Young.
I'm Harriet Young, longtime resident, NAU retired, political scientist, and love Doney Park. And thank you.
Thanks, Harriet. I'm just kind of going down the list. I see Barbara Greenless.
Yeah, Barbara Greenlees. I live in Doney Park. I've been here coming up on 6 years, and I enjoy living here.
Thanks, Barbara. Doug Meyer.
Hi, I'm Doug Meyer, and I'm a resident of Doney Park since about 2008.
Thanks for joining. Dave Browning.
Yes, my wife and I moved here to Doney Park in Pioneer Valley in 06. It's about 15 years that we've been here. And I'm retired. We're both retired. I'm a retired Navy officer. My wife's retired from doing a lot of computer work.
And you're a member of the committee, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Sorry.
Yep, thanks. Okay, Jim Clifford.
Jim Clifford, resident for a long time, District 4 Planning and Zoning Commissioner, work at W.L. Gore, and I am a committee member.
Thank you. Hang on a second. And sorry, I am trying to see where we left off here. Andrea Garrett.
Hi, I am a community member. I've been living here since 1976.
Thanks for joining. And Russell Weedman.
Yes, I am. Oh, excuse me. Yes, this is Russell Weedman. I've been a member of the community for 41 years. And among other things, I was a youth hockey coach for Flagstaff youth hockey program for 13 years. And that was quite interesting. So
Nice.
anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Russell. Supervisor Vasquez, would you like to say hello and introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeronimo Vasquez. I'm supervisor for District 2, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's been really interesting watching this area plan formation, and I'm looking forward to contributing somehow. So, thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Jess McNeely. Jess.
Thanks, Melissa. Hi,
Hi.
Jess McNeely. Coconino County Community Development Department Assistant Director and Planning Manager. Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks, Jess. Sheila Walsh.
I had to unmute. Hi, everybody. I'm Sheila Walsh. I've been a property owner in Doney Park for 37 years, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for joining. Jacob Maffo.
Hi, everybody. I'm the Planning and Zoning Intern for Coconino County Community Development.
Thanks, Jacob. Rob Wilson.
Hi, Rob Wilson. I'm co-chair along with Brian, resident of Timberline and owner of Timberline Firearms.
Thank you. And let's see, Carol Cruz.
Hi, I'm a Doney Park resident since about 1996.
Thank you. Kelly and Gary.
Hi, we are residents of Timberline area. We moved here in 2019. We're kind of new area.
Oh, you're brand new. Yes, thanks for joining.
You're welcome.
Great. And did I miss anybody?
Jessica Simmons, County Staff.
Sorry, Jessica.
No problem.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for the introductions, and it's great to see everyone here tonight. As I mentioned again, we're going to go ahead and jump right into the draft vision statement for the one section of the. Oh, sorry. No, I need to go back. Was there any public comment before we get started?
Yeah, I have I hope it's really quick.
Okay, we allow 3 minutes for public comment at the beginning and the end. So go ahead, Doug.
I just wanted to say thank you to the Doney Park Timberline Fernwood Planning Committee for removing the last sentence from the first draft of the vision statement for the community character and values section of the plan. The draft sentence, which was removed by the committee during the February 11th meeting, read as follows, quote, "We welcome opportunities to access and introduce travelers to places and landscapes north of and beyond our community, such as Native American nations, national parks and monuments, and geologic wonders," end quote. The committee caught that sentence and thankfully removed it. I think that sentence could have been seen by future P&Z commissioners and county supervisors as an open invitation to industrial tourism development in our planning area. I hope that most of us agree that industrial tourism, which is characterized by corporate-funded marketing designed to increase tourism, is fundamentally incompatible with the current rural residential character of the area. Again, my sincere thanks to the committee for doing its job very well in that instance. And thank you, that's it.
Thanks, Doug. Anybody else want to make a comment during public comment period? Okay, and I did see Bernice Carver has joined us. I'm sorry, who was that?
Oh, Russell.
Hi, Russell.
Yeah, I'd like to touch base real quick on a comment I made a few meetings back about engine brake policy. And I've noticed that the city of Flagstaff does have no engine brake policy now that's in effect. And I noticed in the 2001 area plan that they recommended that the county, or they said the county shall work with the Arizona Department of Transportation on the no engine brake policy for Highway 89 coming down into the community. And, you know, I don't think anything has been done after 20 years. So, you know, I'm kind of wondering if it's worth even bringing it up. That's my comment tonight. So,
Thanks, Russell. Bernice, did you want to introduce yourself real quick? We've gone through the introductions, but you joined us now.
Hi, my name is Bernice Carver. I've lived in Doney Park for over 44 years. I love living out here. I love the rural atmosphere. I want to keep it that way. I don't want to see what has happened in other areas happening in our area. I really appreciate being on this committee, and I've learned a lot. I just want to thank everybody for all their hard work that they've been doing, including the people from the county that have done all the research and that thing. And just want to help our area. You know, I'm really concerned about certain areas becoming over densified. I'm really concerned about the water system and the wastewater systems and the aquifer. But thanks for being here.
Thanks. And I think we might need everybody to mute until you're talking. We're just getting some background noise. If everybody would mind just going on mute.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. If anybody
This
needs
is
help.
Sheila Walsh. I'd like to make a comment.
Hi, Sheila.
I'm super grateful for all this hard work the committee is doing. I have a couple of comments. I am not interested in single family lots in our area being even considered for multi-unit build outs. If the city of Flagstaff needs more housing, I'm happy to support the neighborhoods in Flagstaff going to fourplexes. That would not be compatible with our rural lifestyle, with our livestock keeping, farm animals keeping, and other pet keeping. Number two, I do not want any of the existing trails that we have in all of our communities to be paved over in any form. Thanks.
Thank you, Sheila. Anybody else? Okay. Well, thanks for the comments, and we'll just jump right in then to continuing review of the draft vision statement. And I know this is too hard to look at, but I wanted you to see the track changes that have gone through on this one, the community character and values portion of the vision statement. And that's all we're going to focus on tonight. But I do have then the updates to this listed here without track changes. But if we need to go back and forth, we can do that. I know this is easier to read when it's the track changes are not part of it. So one of the suggestions was to keep the term design standards. Well, design standards are really related to architectural design as well as color, lighting, and landscaping. It doesn't necessarily, design standards in the design review overlay district, it won't talk about large lots. Those are in your policies. So I just took that phrase out and left that last sentence as you see it. So we can certainly change it, but I just wanted to bring that point up that design standards actually are pretty targeted to building style.
Melissa, I would like to say thank you for that, because that was something I was going to bring up myself this evening. So very simply for the same reasons you mentioned. Thank you.
Thanks, John. So I'll just read this in case people can't see it. And so I'll read the entire paragraph and then we'll conclude with the last sentence. So our community character is influenced by our rich cultural and historic diversity, natural environment and open space, expansive vistas, dark skies, the natural quiet and rural lifestyle. The diversity of our community is reflected in our history and place names: Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood, Winona, Cosnino. Our closely connected community reflects our independent lifestyle, recognizes our reliance on each other for social support, and strives to be inclusive, fair, and safe. Our community character is reflected in large lots, a variety of building styles, and a recognition of geographic differences that reflects the country living we value. Oh, there's a typo there. Sorry. It says county, it should say country.
Melissa, the one thought I have here is we've heard again this week from those from the public that are participating and in other resources about large lots being important, and using just the word large might be a little vague here. And I'm wondering if we shouldn't better define what we talk about with large as being, you know, minimum of 1 acre lots or something to that effect, so that there isn't a lot of ambiguity there. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I have a thought. This is Bernice. I was just wondering, are lots something more in a urban area? Should they be described as acreages in the country? How is that word defined? That is there another way that we could, or another word that we could use to? And I'm also very concerned about everything being busted up into 1 acre lots. I think that the acreages that we have now, the county has rezoned everything so that everybody can have an extra dwelling on their property. And if we further cut up the pie, we're going to have an urban area.
So I can speak to that. Lots usually are what are created in a subdivision. Parcels are more common in the county when a parcel is created basically based on, you know, historical land divisions and things like that. So you're right, Bernice, lots do generally refer to a subdivision style development, which you have a mix of in your area. It's parcels as well as lots and subdivisions. So you know, you get pretty specific, you get very specific in the goals and policies about size. Remember, this is your vision, and you want to keep it a more general statement rather than starting to list specific sizes. So there is that to consider.
I'll retract my comment till we get to that section.
Okay, just a comment on that. Lots, I think, pretty much is something that most people recognize as a term. I'd hate to see it change to parcels. A lot of people might not understand that as easily. So large lots, I think, works.
Could we say large lots and parcels?
They're both the same. That's kind of like table mesa or table or mesa mesa.
I think lots will cover it, because depending where you are in our community, lots changes. Like where I am, it's 2.5. Other above me, it's 5. Timberline, it's 1. So I think lots covers it.
Lots cover it.
Yeah, it's easily understood by most people. So should stay, I think.
Yeah, I think it stands as is.
I think we're good then.
I agree. This is Brian. I agree. I like the way it's stated.
Okay, should we move on then?
Yes, please.
Is this okay? Good job, you guys. So now I'm going to stop sharing this, and we're going to jump back into our Word document and pick up where we left off. I'll make it bigger, so hang on. Is that a good size?
Big as you can get is probably best. That's good.
Is that good?
Yep.
Okay, so again, we are in the natural environment, open space, parks, trails, and recreation, the goals and policies. And we ended here with this goal here. And the goal is that conflicts among users of the national forest lands is minimized to ensure public safety and preservation of adjacent neighborhood tranquility. And then these policies are specifically addressing national forest issues. And so number 12, and I can read these again for people that can't see the screen. The Planning and Zoning Commission and Board of Supervisors should require all new subdivisions or development in the planning area adjacent to federal lands to provide adequate protection of wildlife corridors and from livestock intrusions onto properties by using wildlife-friendly fencing standards. In critical wildlife areas or corridors, Arizona Game and Fish wildlife-friendly fencing standards will be followed. Any comments on that?
Melissa?
Yes.
This is Brian. We have consistently been using should be instead of will be. Does that apply here?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
This is Bernice. I would like to comment on, again, I think we should explore property tax breaks and liability releases for people that might give an easement to on their property for a wildlife corridor, similar to what other places have done for trails. I think that would be something worth exploring in critical areas.
I have a question. Do we have any authority or any way that we affect the tax structure?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, honestly, and I would need to get with our assessor's office to find out if there's anything that is in the current toolbox that the county could actually employ to offer that kind of incentive. So
Could the county pass an ordinance to do
well,
that?
yeah, Bernice, I do not know. Yeah, that's something pretty much beyond what I think, I mean.
This is Liz. I think that came up with Trails too, didn't it, Melissa? And
it
you
did.
were on it, and you're going to ask Dave Wessel and also Nick, our engineer, about that, and the finance department. Yeah, this has come up numerous times because what is an initiative, a tax initiative or incentive? And then I think the Forest Service, and I was talking to Patrick, was saying we just asked them. There's really, on his part, he said there's really nothing we can do that way, but Melissa said she was going to get on it. So
yeah, I need to follow up with, I'm not sure that there is anything. I have never heard of that, anything in this county, but I will find out for you.
Just one quick comment on that, at least from the standpoint of the Planning and Zoning Commission, with a number of times in the past with subdivisions, we have required addressing the wildlife corridors, and that has been done through the way that the subdivision is laid out to accommodate those corridors. In some cases, no fencing has been allowed. Other cases, we have worked with Game and Fish on this and required that be part of the subdivision. As far as the tax issues go, I don't think that, at least at the Planning and Zoning Commission we can't address that, or we have no way to do that.
Thanks, John.
When I worked on the Pacific Crest Trail, we went through the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, and that was in the early 70s. And they did pass some type of property tax relief for people that provided land for the Pacific Crest Trail.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've heard of that in other places too, but I'll have to see what that would take care. And it could be, that if that's a recommendation that comes out of this planning process, then it goes into the plan as a future idea it may not be that we have that ability now, but then that could be in the plan as a potential policy. So, okay, how about, are we moving on from 12 then? Again, we can do, wordsmithing to make it read smoother, but is the general idea here appropriate for everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, it certainly works at planning and zoning commission level, I'll say that.
Okay, great, thank you. Number 13, the Arizona Department of Transportation and County Department of Public Works, as appropriate, should provide improved signage at migratory wildlife sites in the planning area and in immediately adjacent areas to protect human life and to minimize road kills of deer and elk. Okay, sound good?
Melissa?
Yes.
Real quickly, what about changing deer and elk just to wildlife?
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Those poor skunks.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Thank you. All right, number 14. The county should work with the U.S. Forest Service to identify appropriate access points for new residential subdivisions adjacent to national forest lands and require trail easements to provide access to the forest. The developer should be required to construct the trail in conformance to current best practices.
Yeah, that is something that has been ongoing, at least the P&Z commission level.
And what this does point to, appropriate access points. So not everywhere is appropriate for that access. So that's why it's very important to work with the Forest Service to identify where that is. Whether there's going to be access or parking or actually that it will link to another trail system. So that's a very important step.
Yeah, the initial hearing process, that always seems to be a point that comes up and that is discussed.
Okay, interesting. I think this policy has been there. We've just enhanced it. All right, so number 15, the county should investigate means to acquire public access easements to the forest in lot split areas. I am not 100% sure. This is an existing policy, number 15. I don't know that the county holds a lot of public access easements in, this is something that maybe we could look at. We'll have our legal staff look at this to see.
Is this in a lot split area that already has public access to the forest? Or is it something new?
Well, I think it could be both, Bernice.
Oh.
This sounds like more a policy that our county supervisors would be weighing in on, because what we're asking is the county itself to take over responsibility for these easements. And I guess I'm not super sure why this would be in our planning document.
Rob, I think you hit the nail on the head. I was thinking exactly the same thing, that this is not a level that we would deal with, but it would be the Board of Supervisors or the Forest Service.
And the thing that this isn't tied to, just looking at this again now, is that it's not tied to any kind of trail system. I mean, that's where you want the access points. You really want, them to tie into something. So this may not have a lot of meaning for your planning area.
I mean, the big picture is when we do a rezone, when we do a lot split, when we do any kind of a, official change to access, that's when we want to try to maintain what exists. And maybe there's a way we could say that, but this particular statement goes, I think, too far beyond that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree. It just really is entirely too general. And the other thing, access easements like this can be created when you do a subdivision. Otherwise, it's a little bit difficult. The mechanics of it are a wee bit difficult. You run into property rights issues, that sort of thing.
So it sounds like, is anybody a strong proponent of keeping this or have a defense of it?
No, Rob, I think you're right. I don't think it's appropriate here.
I'm not, yeah, I'm not sure
ahead,
about, yeah. I'm not sure about that. If you can get the county to acquire this public access, then, that takes it away from, from being a responsibility of individual property owners, which would be good for me.
Well,
my problem with it is it says lot splits. So you're
Yeah.
taking a piece of private land and splitting it from 5 acres to 2.5 acres or something of that nature.
Well, yeah,
Unless the private individual wants to do that, I don't see how the county has any standing.
the other thing I would like to mention relative to that, Brian's absolutely right. When the flooding occurred after the Schultz fire, just getting an easement for the floodway that was created during that flooding, especially the Copeland and Rope Arabian wash areas, was almost impossible. Nobody wanted to give up anything. They thought they were giving away their property for something like that. And there was so much resistance that no such drainage easements exist for most of the Copeland wash, the Rope Arabian wash. So this is like asking the county to ask for private property anytime there's a lot split. So I don't think it's the right place for this.
And I would wonder in 2001 what the intent was with this. And since 2001, there are a lot of new initiatives to create trail systems and look at public access points that maybe weren't active at that time. So this is something that looking at this now as in 2021, it seems like it's something that is being taken care of in other places by the Forest Service and Flagstaff Trails Initiative and all the efforts that are going on to really identify where the true access points need to be. This could be fairly random.
I kind of think we should leave it in.
Since I'm the one that was on there in 2001, just to add a little bit, what we were experiencing at the time is that different developments were happening and folks were getting shut out of being able to access that forest because somebody would gain a strip of land, they develop it, and then the access would be cut off. And so to be able to get from our places into the forest was being cut off. And so that it was a concern back in 2001.
I think it could be more of a concern now because we have more development now, and with these low interest rates and more developers coming in, I think this is even more important now.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with that. The only thing I would add is that at this point, how many bordering, although we have discussed there could be land swaps that happen, and we need to look at that. But at this point, a lot of the developments that exist against the Forest Service property have happened. Like if we didn't have the access at the top of Copeland, it actually got shut off during the flooding. But if we didn't have that access, it would take me, for example, 30 minutes on my horse to get into the forest. Whereas now with that access open back up, it takes me about 15 minutes.
Said 5:30.
I think that if you took the term lot split out of that, it might be more relevant to what we're seeing today.
Kind of that more generalized when, formal changes are being requested.
Right.
We work to maintain that access that currently exists.
Right. And that's where this happens now. Any kind of a subdivision, even a small one, and there isn't that much area left to create a subdivision with in the Doney Park planning area. So lot splits, That's taking private property in the eyes of some people, but take the lot split part out, and I think you've got it.
What was that?
Could everybody please mute if you're not speaking? Thank you.
I'm doing it. I have my earphones up.
I just took that out. How does everybody like it?
Works for me.
Looks good.
Thanks for the clarification, everybody. Okay, so number 16, this one has been modified. Off-highway vehicle travel should be restricted to roadways designated by the Forest Service for OHV use. For example, the Cinder Hills OHV area. The Forest Service should ensure speed limits are posted on Forest Service roads. The Forest Service is requested to obtain public input prior to designating OHV roadways and areas.
I'm going to ask a general question. There's no enforcement mechanism in this. Is that something that we want to consider, or is that even within our purview?
Well, the Forest Service would enforce on their land, right?
Yes.
Well, they don't enforce it off of our land. That's I live right up on that area, and they come down things that are not authorized, and then they shoot up the signs when they say no vehicular traffic allowed beyond this point. They shoot the sign up. So there's no real enforcement, and I don't know what you do about it, but I do want you to know it doesn't work right now. They go where they darn well please.
And this was specifically related to national forest issues. And the goal is conflicts among users of the national forest is minimized to ensure public safety and preservation of, and there's a typo here.
But if it's not mentioned at all as a community, what are we implying by that?
That we don't care if we take it out, because that is a statement of policy. I think it should remain. It states how we as a community look at this. And it may eventually enter into decisions that both the planning and zoning and the board of supervisors make in the future.
What if we were to say the county board of supervisors should be in contact or in communication with the Forest Service for enforcement issues?
I would like to see it say posted and enforced on Forest Service roads. And we have at the Turkey Hills, we've been able to get sheriffs out here. I've gotten Forest Service officers to come out here. And all of a sudden, you know, our problems have been minimized.
They've all come here.
Well, I told them where they could go.
This
Go
particular
back behind Harriet's house. There's plenty of room. Thank you, Bernice.
Yeah, I talk to them. I stop them. I'll stop my horse right in front of them and talk to them nicely and explain that we don't want the ATVs banned from this area. So we all have to pay attention to stay on the roads. And I used to ride motorcycles, and my kids had motorcycles, and I don't anymore.
Well, it's the all-terrain vehicle.
You know, to talk to the people.
Well, we do, but one lady got really, really mad and was very, very threatening, and it scared my neighbor to death. I wasn't terribly worried, but she thought she had a right to be right up there on our property lines, which is like 30 feet from our bedroom windows. And she just swore that she had a right to be there, and we kept saying, no, this is really not your area. But you know, there's no way.
$200 fine for riding off-road, off of the designated trails. And you have to pay for restoration of the area if you develop a trail. So those can be enforced.
Okay.
Let me come back to the enforcement real quick. What if we were to say the Forest Service is requested to work with the Board of Supervisors and to obtain public input?
That would be good.
Should it be the Board of Supervisors or the county sheriff, since county sheriff is an elected official who's responsible for enforcing the law?
County sheriff.
Yeah.
If we just say the county.
The county.
For the county. Yeah, I think the county in general covers it.
Yep.
And this has been a big issue that's been identified in the survey by public comment by a number of places.
Right.
I wonder if some new language recommending either enlarging or creating buffer zones between OHV areas and things or something like that would help minimize some of the conflict that currently happens.
That would be delightful if we could get them to do it. We complain, and I'm sure they get plenty of it. But if there could be something we could do to urge them to do something, I think that's a wonderful idea.
So are you suggesting on Forest Service land that they create a buffer zone?
A buffer, yeah, a dead zone.
Well, that's a good idea. And that's something to definitely bring to the Forest Service.
It could mitigate noise and dust also.
Is that something that we could add as a 17 here or something like that?
Let's see what we have next. So this group of policies was specifically related to national forest issues.
Right. Which this would.
Yep. Rob, I think that's a good idea.
Be nice to have a buffer area for shooting also. We had somebody with a high-powered rifle out here real close to our houses today. For noise, dust, for other things.
If they're within a quarter of a mile, they're breaking the law.
How do you want to then address a potential buffer? Put it at the end of this sentence, the Forest Service.
I think that's a new issue. No, I think that's a new issue. And
a new policy?
Yeah, yes. And basically that we should encourage the county and the Forest Service to work together where possible to establish buffer zones in impact areas.
Yeah, residential areas particularly.
And you can wordsmith that however you need to, Melissa.
But this is specific to OHVs.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't think, why would it have to be? I think it could include Bernice's concern about folks shooting near their home.
Well, it sounds like there's already a law that handles that deals with that.
If we could increase that quarter mile, which is just one block, to a minimum of a half a mile around residential areas, that would be great. And that could include the ATVs also.
That's not something that this document can do because that's a statewide law.
Yeah, that's a state level, from what I understand.
Yes, the limitation on shooting is a state statute.
Yeah.
And I'd like to suggest adding something OHV buffer zones adjacent to residential property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, John, because everyone keeps on saying adjacent to residential area, but we're really saying when they abut OHV areas. Yeah, that's
well, adjacent or abutting would cover it, I think, and that from the planning point of view, that's how I would like to see it worded: adjacent to or abutting residential property.
I have a question.
Or abut or adjacent to. How's that?
But
John, I have a question. It's Harriet. Are there any requirements that people who use OHV recreation areas have anything that they have to read or understand before they go out there to know that there are restricted areas, or that there are safety concerns, or that there are safe ways to do things or not do things? Sitting here, I would say they don't know what they're doing most of the time, but is there are they required to take some kind of safety precautions that they know about?
The only thing that I know of that's out there, and this comes from my years of riding motorcycles off-road, and that is the sheriff's office and state parks just simply publish brochures that are intended to inform you of what your responsibilities are.
Okay.
There's no requirement that somebody take any kind of a class or anything else like that.
in order to get an OHV sticker, which is required to be able to operate those vehicles in those designated areas, there is, when you apply for that, a statement that you sign acknowledging that you are familiar with and will comply with the rules and regulations regarding operation of those vehicles in those areas.
Oh.
And I think that's the extent of it.
Yep, Rob's absolutely right about that. It's pretty much voluntary, and you say, yeah, I've read this, I know this stuff, and that's it.
Kind of like an end user agreement. Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I read it.
Okay, so this new 17, how does that read to everybody?
Didn't we, this is Liz, but didn't we say, this is Liz, didn't we say it's important to say adjacent and abutted? Because abutted's right next to it, adjacent could be across the street, right? So John, didn't you say you wanted to put abutment in there as well?
Well, mathematically speaking, adjacent is connected in one way.
No.
I'm a nerd.
Well,
yeah, no, that wonderful, but I thought we had a discussion about those two words a while back.
We go through this at the Planning and Zoning Commission every now and then. Abut means that it is directly,
correct.
The lines are the same. Adjacent can be across the street. Now that could
right.
be across I-40, which is a very wide right of way. So adjacent or abut is, I think, the appropriate language that you want here.
Y'all are violating mathematical law, but who am I to talk about that? Okay.
Well, I'm thinking about the legal definition
okay.
and what is in the zoning codes and what is in state law.
Yep.
All right, well, how does this read then?
Right.
The county and the Forest Service should consider establishing buffer zones to limit OHV use adjacent to or abutting residential property.
I have an issue. What's the definition of limit OHV use?
Well,
there is a definition in the county zoning ordinance. There
for
is
OHV.
Also, that is right. And there is also a somewhat less inclusive definition in state statute.
And I think we were going to include this in your glossary, the OHV, but Dave, was your question about limit?
Yes, yeah. If I had an OHV and I didn't know any better and I was reading this one thing, does it mean I can't go there? Why don't, is that a buffer zone? Is that an exclusive zone? Or is it something I have to be quiet in or what?
Does it prohibit OHV use adjacent to?
Limit.
Yeah, Dave's got a good point. That Rob is right about that, or Brian is right about that. Prohibit.
Yeah.
That would work.
I agree. That makes it clear.
Stop it.
All righty.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on then to the next section, trails and recreation goals and policies. The first goal, provide a variety of recreational, cultural, and historic interpretive opportunities in Doney Park, Timberline Fernwood. That's a goal. And then we need to update the numbers here. So the trail and recreation policy is associated with that goal. New residential subdivisions should incorporate park facilities, a trail system, and bicycle connections linking homes to trails and sidewalks throughout the planning area. Refer to the multimodal trails and transit map and other resources. And that map name is highlighted because that is a map that our GIS department has been working really hard on, and we will roll that out to you soon. Or I could show it to you now, but we could really get lost in the details on that.
Melissa and committee, right here it said in the planning area, but I know we're addressing it a lot in transportation, Melissa, maybe we should just let it be here.
Mm-hmm.
But the planning area and connecting community, because we've got, and beyond, or connecting community, connectivity to the community, because remember that whole thing on the Timberline Trail and the new FUTS connection is really important to put in every aspect so we can refer back to it for future when the money's there. So right here throughout the planning area and adjacent communities or adjacent Flagstaff, because we've got to kind of connect our trails. We just don't want to be around the neighborhood. Some people want to connect to Flagstaff. So any ideas of how we're going to say that, or leave it alone because we're addressing it in the other section?
I think simply referring to the multimodal trails and transit map covers that.
Okay.
I remember going over that back in 2011, I believe, and it was pretty thoroughly laid out.
Okay.
So referring to that, I think would probably cover it pretty well.
Okay, Melissa, is there any way that, or should we, the legality of this, that we can say refer back to transportation policy or?
Well, what
Or
we'll
just-
do is we'll try to cross-reference as much as possible.
Okay.
See
Okay.
also TC number X.
Okay.
And that's what we've done in recent area plans, and it really does help. So you kind of,
Okay.
Don't have to jump through the whole document. You can see the cross-referencing because there's a fair amount of, I wouldn't say duplication, but a lot of related policies throughout the different sections.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
This is Bernice. I'm concerned about the multimodal trails and transit plan. I'm not really familiar with it. Is there some place that we can find that?
Well, it's a map, Bernice, and it's one that we've been putting together for this plan. And yes, we'll get it. I will get that to you. It's been kind of in production, but what we've intended to do with it is what we've done with it is take the multimodal plan, which we've reviewed with this committee, although you may not. It's been a little while. It was created in 2011, so there's a multimodal plan that was developed for Doney Park in 2011, and taking those updated lines and combining that with the trails that we've seen from the Forest Service on their Mount Eldon Dry Lakes Hills project, from the Flagstaff Trails Initiative, plus the trails that were in this plan previously. So we'll be looking at that. We don't have time tonight, but we'll definitely be looking at that map because I can certainly show it to you, but we will definitely need to review that in more detail at a different meeting. So that's why this is highlighted.
Okay. I'm concerned about parking at the trailheads too.
Sure.
We still don't have enough parking at our trailheads. I'm concerned that that the trails not be paved, and I really think that they should be, if they have to go through private property, that it should be there should be input from the property owners, and again the incentives.
Well, Bernice, to answer that question, if I may, Melissa, we address a lot of those things in the transportation mode because there's this little section of trails here. We were even thinking about taking it out because we are addressing a lot in detail. And I can send you what we've written already, and we still have more to do because there's a lot of investigation in that topic. But it is really getting addressed. It is. Maybe not in this section, but in the transportation and trails, it is. And we haven't finished it because they keep on doing updates. And so we could send you the transportation part that we've done already, but we haven't even gotten to that, but we will.
Yeah, we probably want to finish that up, Liz, and then get it out to everybody.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
would be opposed to deleting this from the plan.
Say that again, Bernice.
I said I wouldn't be opposed to deleting this. Well, I guess this is for new subdivisions. This is only for new subdivisions, not existing properties.
And you're simply referring to it as a reference here.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
Okay. So existing properties are protected from, say, the county coming in and saying, we're going to make a bicycle trail through your property here.
Yeah, this being Arizona, yeah, you bet.
Well, and a bicycle trail is a big planning project, and if it's something that the community wanted, it would likely be on, along a public road. But if there was a trail that the community wanted and people were wanting to give easements, it goes back to that earlier conversation about access points.
Yeah.
But that would be certainly a big community planning process. So does this policy and this goal still resonate?
Yeah, like I said, might as well leave that there because you're simply using it as a reference.
Yep.
When you look at these things.
Okay. Well, moving on then to the next goal, develop an integrated trail system for all users within Doney Park, Timberline Fernwood that links to a regional trail system. And then there are 3 policies under that goal. Number 19, support new trail connections linking the planning area to regional trail systems and access points identified by the Flagstaff Trails Initiative, Flagstaff Urban Trails, Flagstaff Open Space and Greenways Plan, and the U.S. Forest Mount Eldon Dry Lakes Hills Project. So we've heard from all of these efforts, the FTI, the Flagstaff Urban Trails, the Forest Service Metal Project, and have seen some of the work that's gone on to create new trails in and around the planning area. So the idea here is to link to those systems that are being created or identified by these other efforts.
Melissa, can I interject? This is Liz. Real quickly, the new one, the Timberline Trail that was initiated in 2010 and it was dropped, and then it's getting repicked up, the one, we've been talking to Patrick about with the Forest Service. Should that be included in this? Because he calls it the Timberline Trail, or this is just references just
Well,
because.
wouldn't that be part of the metal project right here?
I thought that. And when I talked to him last, he called it, no, it's called the Timberline Trail.
But I think it would be part of this project.
Okay, so these are projects. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting specific trails. You're right. Okay.
Yeah, no, these are not specific trails.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
I think that was included in the multimodal plan when it was developed also.
I think it wasn't.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Any comments on this?
Well, I just missed I don't know what did they just say?
So Liz was bringing up a specific trail called the Timberline, used to be called the Timberline Trail, and whether or not that should be named here. But this policy number 19 is really just referring to projects, initiatives.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I know the reason we put that in there is we were so cut off from all the trail systems that we were reaching for any possible connection we could get. So if we want to follow that little line of thought, then yeah, I'd say add everything we can. But again, since this is about our vision and what we want to be, we wanted the opportunity to try to connect to anything because we were cut off back in 2001.
Yeah, and this is a sentiment that showed up during the time that that multimodal trails and transit plan was developed back in 2010. That was a big concern that was expressed. I think some attitudes have changed about it since in the 10 to 11 years since then. And Monica's absolutely right about that.
What do you mean? How have they changed, John?
Well, there was a lot of resistance to connecting to a trail system because a lot of people in Timberline and the area along the west of 89 felt, well, it'll bring the kind of traffic into the neighborhood on that trail system that we don't want to have. We'll see increases in burglaries, all kinds of things like that. But I think that listening to people on this committee and other comments I've heard in the intervening time, I think the attitudes about that have changed a little bit.
Well, isn't it true? Go ahead, Liz.
Go ahead, Liz.
I was saying, isn't it, John, that the two or three big troublemakers on that in 2010 have gone? They went back to where they came from. And then that's what I was so excited because just by chance, I was talking to Patrick from the Forest Service, and he said that Timberline Trail is being readdressed. And he said it was dropped for political reasons. And he said that out loud. And so I think you're right. The Flagstaff initiative brought up more comments, and then more people were looking at the multimodal. And then it's just like a resurgence because there had been a lot of surveys, and the Forest Service just did a resurvey and got more comments because of that trail being brought up. And people said, yes, we want it. And they sent it out a while back.
Okay.
So
did this map display, just real quick, did the did the map display for you?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and this is the map that we've been working on. This is the Multimodal Trails and Transit map, and it's there. You can see the title. When you start to zoom in, you know, we've incorporated a lot of different layers of information here. It needs some edits still, but this is really getting to a point where you all can start looking at this. It shows the activity centers. It shows some of the systems that were identified in the multimodal plan, but then it does wrap in existing Forest Service trails, trails from the Flagstaff Trails Initiative. So this is something that will take some time to look at. I just wanted to just display it really quick to give you an idea of what it's looking like.
Yeah, and real quick, as far as some of the attitudes about this, one of my neighbors is very much an off-road bicycle enthusiast, as well as on-road. And I heard a lot about it back then from the bicycle community, and they really wanted to see this.
Yep, it's a resurgent, it's for sure.
Yep, I think Liz is absolutely right about this.
So does 19, is everybody comfortable with 19?
Looks good.
I'm just highlighting that again because this is how we'll cross-reference, and as numbers change, we need to. Okay, so 20, then work with the county, City of Flagstaff, State Land Department, and U.S. Forest Service to identify locations and develop signage, interpretive materials, and information about trails throughout the planning area. I mean, this would be a big ask. You know, signage is not always easy, and it's not cheap to develop, but it could really be a nice amenity in the area.
It's as a policy, I think it's a good policy to have. If it's possible to do that, by all means.
It's called wayfinding, by the way, but should we move on to 21? Okay, 21, support development of the U.S. Bicycle Route 66 project segment that traverses the Doney Park Timberline Fernwood area plan. Encourage developers to consider the route alignment and incorporate facilities and signage that preserves and identifies the route. So we've talked a little bit about this, the U.S. Bicycle Route 66 project. It's along what would be Route 66, and that's Towns of Winona in your area. I mean, it's not exactly, but it would be most likely along that route. And it's a nationwide project that this organization is trying to create a linked and signed route all along whatever remaining portions there are of Route 66, and then where there are not portions to, you know, at least make other connections. So people that are real bicycle enthusiasts can ride through there and follow the route. We did this in Belmont too, because as you know, part of Route 66 goes through Belmont. And in Coconino County, the supervisors signed a resolution agreeing to do this, and it will become a statewide initiative. There were a couple more counties in Arizona that needed to sign on, so I don't know the exact status of it right now, but it is being basically organized by ADOT. Any thoughts on 21?
It's fine with me.
Anybody else?
Hey, as a policy statement, leave it in there. It's a good one.
It just brings to the attention this potential project. Okay, so the next section is for parks, and the goal is encourage the development and maintenance of recreation, social, and community gathering spaces throughout the planning area. And then policy 22, county-owned parcels could be utilized for recreational purposes within the community, such as developing the flood control basin parcel. Now, the reality that could only be a very limited development, but maybe it could be a skate park or something. John, was that you?
No, this is Brian. Going back to the goal, I have a question. It says to develop and maintain recreation gathering areas throughout the planning area. Would those be primarily in the rural activity centers?
Well,
I mean, it's a very generic statement, but I'm wondering if we would want to tie it to the rural activity centers.
It's a question for the committee, for you, for your community. Do you want to limit that just to your rural activity centers, or is that something that's important throughout the entire planning area?
Brian, I would think that the activity centers are probably not where we would want parks.
Yeah.
Since they're typically the areas that have the commercially zoned property and that kind of stuff.
They have the commercial, yep. I agree with Rob.
Okay.
Oh, and you know what? This is showing my ignorance, but that last part, this is Liz, on 22, that last part, such as developing the flood control basin parcel. I'm just thinking, we're all to have the flood control. I know that's not what it said. Maybe just how I interpret it, but it sounds like developing the flood control basin parcel, like where they're having the big flood holding tanks. We're going to put a skate park in there.
Well, it's an idea that's been tossed around. Do you know
What if somebody wants to go skate parking when it's flooding? I mean, I don't know. I'm just like, you want to put a, I just don't get that.
Just a
Can you
comment.
clarify that, John?
Hey, I'd just like to make a comment directed to help you out a little there, Liz.
Okay.
Something like that. Let's say it became part of the county parks department system.
Okay.
To do something like that, they're required to come to the Planning and Zoning Commission initially to get the approval for their plan for it, just like they did with the master plan for Fort Tuthill. So
Okay.
there is going to be review beyond, say, county parks and rec or something like that, if it is suggested or planned.
Okay. I just think of flood control zones, just like they were trying to, there was another area down in Phoenix and I can't remember what it was, but they wanted to do housing in a flood zone. And I'm like, what? So when I look at this, I'm like, we want to do a community center area in a flood control basin. I'm like, wow, okay.
Well, there are places that are in communities that are using them for dual purpose. Obviously,
Okay.
when they're flooded, then, the recreational use would not be able to take place. But, I've seen images in cities where they're using flood areas for recharge, but they also serve as parks, gathering
Okay.
places.
And
So it can be designed so it's not just
Safe. Okay.
so it's safe, and then it's not just a fenced off basin
Okay.
that never gets used. But
Melissa-
that's a big ask, yeah.
Melissa is right. This is very common practice in the valley and throughout jurisdictions in the southern part of the state. Dual purpose, so to speak, or multi-purpose drainage retention areas.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
Let me make one comment.
Yeah.
It's out on Highway 89 by Timberline. There's the large basin there, the water retention basin there.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, really.
And that's been proposed to be, a soccer field or some other athletic field that during the time it's flooded, well, you're not playing there today. Get your kayaks out.
Well, I can tell you it ain't going to be flooded because I live right there. Okay.
Yeah.
So that thing got put in. It's not going to see a lot of water. It'd be really great if we could come up with some other uses that are safe when it's not in the flood season.
I believe it's almost 80 acres.
It is 80 acres.
It's huge.
Right now, it's
Are you
published.
kidding me? It's huge. I used to
I
run my
have a
horse
question.
field.
It's also
This is,
posted as
Jeronimo
pictures
Vasquez.
right now.
Sorry, go ahead, Supervisor Vasquez.
Oh, thank you. So my question is there interest in finding a way to get some kind of sports complex or recreational place out in that area, in particular, just based on what I've been seeing with facilities and whatnot, west of the 89? Is that something that people would be interested in? Like, for example, someone had said a soccer complex in that parcel. I'm just curious. I'm trying to kind of gauge where the need is, and because that's something that I personally would be interested in.
I think there's a number of folks that just look at that 80 acres of open space that the county owns and think there has to be something more productive we can do with it than just keep it vacant and post it as no trespassing. Soccer fields, picnic areas. It's an awesome view of the peaks from right there. Who knows what, but I think it just looked at a wasted resource right now.
Okay.
Supervisor Vasquez, this is Brian.
Yes.
Now I got to think of his name. Don Howard, the former fire chief for the Doney Park Fire Department, has suggested that area be used as a multi-purpose area, and you could put concrete in there for and picnic grounds. You could put a soccer field. You could put a whole number of different things in there that would be water tolerant. So maybe it gets shut down for a week, 2 weeks when we get a big storm, but then it's available for the other 50 weeks of the year.
And most likely, if we get a storm that floods it out, people aren't going to be having their tournaments anyway. So
that's very likely.
Yeah, or their events. So okay, so that's definitely something that I'm interested in looking into. So please, if you have any ideas on ways to go about doing that, or who else I should talk to, please let me know, because like I said, just on a personal level, I think that the community needs some kind of east side park complex. I'm particular to soccer, but I could see it being multi-use with multiple different recreational opportunities. So like I said, I'm interested in that, and I'll be following up on that. So if you have any ideas, please reach out, let me know, so that or help me work on this. Thank you.
Look at the Peaks View Park plan. I don't know, I can't remember how many acres that takes up, but that has equestrian, soccer, and that playground with walking paths through it. And this could be a good area on that northwest side of the planning area to do something like that.
And I know our Parks and Recreation Department would be able to provide a lot of reality checks about doing, constructing something like that and where they are in their budget.
What can and what cannot be done.
Right.
That's the other thing I'm learning right now.
Thank you.
And to echo off Jim's comment there, one of the other suggestions that have been made is a fitness trail kind of a thing, where you're on the high ground around the perimeter and there are different types of exercise equipment around there. So you could run around the entire place doing different types of exercise while enjoying the outdoors.
I like that. Thank you. Definitely write that down.
I think the important thing is that something like this statement as a policy be there to encourage us and county government to look at ways of utilizing the property in a way that benefits the community out here.
Maybe an outdoor shooting range. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
All right, just what we expected from Rob.
Okay, I'm gonna give it's 6:14. I'm gonna move us on. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So it sounds like 22 is a good addition then. And then what about 23? Where possible, connect parks and gathering places to trails and other transportation routes.
Hard to argue with that.
Yeah,
Yes.
how else? Well,
Good one. That's a good one.
Okay.
Good part of the policy.
keep it.
All right, thanks. I hear that. So 24, the county parks department should continue to solicit input for residents of the area on ways to meet the area's recreational needs. Well,
That one's a no.
We
brainer.
just, that's
We
no
just
brainer.
talked
And we
about
just told it to district, whatever his district is.
yeah, okay, great. We'll move on then. And so now we are in vegetation and wildlife goals. And the first goal, native plant species are preserved while noxious and invasive plant species are controlled and treated. That's a goal. 2 policies here. Number 25, county approved and biologically safe efforts to eradicate invasive plant species are encouraged. And I know Brian and other people who worked on this, I believe we tossed this around quite a bit, trying to
Yeah, I have a comment. Back in the day, and this is when we moved in somewhere in the 90s, there were organizations that knew what they were doing. that came out and solicited volunteers, and we did roadside invasive plant removal along our part of 89. And I don't know if anybody's done anything since, but we've got numbers of botanists out here who are muttering very strongly that we have to get back on the invasive plants. So we could see if we could put something in there. Either volunteers or community helpers should be encouraged to police the I guess it's the trucks that drop it. Somebody told me that. They come in from other parts of the country and seeds get dropped along the road.
Oh, you know, birds do it and everybody does it. Everybody, you can get it on your feet and bring it in. You know, weeds can go anywhere. But the group you're talking about, Harry, this is Liz, is Friends of Flagstaff. And it was in the 90s, and there were groups of 30, because I was one of them, that would be assigned an area, and they'd give you the bags and gloves, and you'd go and pull them, and you'd have one leader that would know the weed, and that's what you do. Nature Conservancy used to do that too in the 90s. I don't know if people aren't complaining about it again.
So read number 26, everybody. The community is encouraged to utilize available educational resources about invasive plant identification and control, such as the County Extension Service.
Okay.
Maybe that could be beefed up.
Okay.
Yeah, and have them send things out every once in a while, like in the spring. Right now is when we ought to be organizing, and have all of us who've lived here for 1,000 years ought to know who to call, what to do, and wanted to do it because I'd been encouraged to do it, and I didn't know who to call. Now I know.
Well, and do you want to add something in there to organize volunteer efforts?
Yeah. You know me.
To me,
I'm
I think
always big on volunteer efforts. I think that would be a useful use of time.
to me, all of that makes sense, but I think this policy covers it. This is just policy. It's not developing the details.
Did we want, I just added in these 3 words, to organize volunteer efforts.
Yeah. And Melissa, does the County Extension Service know that we're putting, I mean, like, are they prepared to do this, or do they have a committee already set up, or does this just encourage it to set this committee up?
Well,
because I've never heard of a County Extension Service. I've never heard, I know where it is, I know what it is, but I've never known of any outreach to do this from them. It's just Friends of Flagstaff. And
I think our new county supervisor, hello, this is Harriet, ought to ask them to meet with you at your next monthly meeting and start getting it set up.
Oh, yes. Is he there?
Geronimo? He's already off. I'll call him.
So yeah, we can check with the extension service.
Yes, I am here. I'm sorry. What was the question? I apologize. I just stepped off for a minute.
It's Harriet. I was just urging you. We're talking about the County Extension Service, about which we know nothing, but I'm one of those people who wants to try to stop invasive weeds. I've been trained by B. Cooley on all of this. But could you invite the County Extension Service to come to your monthly meeting, or whenever you do meet out here, and explain how we could start our own volunteer organization to clear out the invasive plants we get from the highway, particularly?
Yes, sure. I would love to. I would love to help work on that.
Great.
What kind of timeline are we talking about? Just ballpark, so that I have an idea of.
Well, it's March, and spring will be here when?
Now. It's spring now.
Hey, I'd just like to add something here that might help out a little bit. Supervisor Vasquez, John Paxton is the guy who's been coordinating this kind of thing for the neighborhood watch meetings. I think our next one is due first Tuesday of next month, same as the Board of Supervisors. And one other comment about the Extension Service, to clarify what they typically do. Extension Service, whether it be the county, a university, or any other level, is an information dissemination service.
Yeah.
Yep, and I think that they do have a lot of resources about invasive weeds, so that would be a good. And this is such as I'm sure there are many more resources available than just the county extension service, but that would be a really good place to start.
Yes. And I think John Paxton has been pretty persuasive in getting people to come out for the
To his
neighborhood
meeting.
watch meeting. And I think our next
Yes.
one's probably going to be online and probably will for a while. So that is the person to get something like that on the meeting agenda.
That's exciting.
Okay,
Very
great.
good.
Thank you.
All right, so
You
should
bet.
we move to the next goal then? Are you ready to move on from this? Are these policies
Yes, move
Good.
on.
Yes, move on,
satisfactory?
please.
Okay, so the next goal under vegetation wildlife migration corridors are preserved for wildlife species as a goal. And then a policy under that, number 27, when keystone species habitat is identified on properties that are proposed for development, efforts are undertaken to protect those species.
Can I go ahead? Go ahead, Bernice.
Somebody was talking.
I thought Bernice was.
I don't know. What did you have? What did
Okay.
you think, Liz?
Well, my question is, instead of just saying those in species and their corridors, because, like when you do ESAs for endangered species, you're really not doing it for the species. You're really doing it to protect the habitat. So do we put in there committee efforts to undertake to protect these species, those species and their corridor? Because if you protect the species, but you don't protect the corridor, you know what I mean? Like habitat or and their habitat instead of just their species. Like, do we want it to be broader?
The
I
goal is
think that-
migration corridors are preserved, because it migration corridors and habitat.
But it doesn't say that in the sentence, so.
Right. I think Liz has got it absolutely right in terms of corridor as well as species included. Something else we look at the P&Z commission level.
Like that?
No, on the actual number 27, I thought. On the
Well,
actual, what?
Keep, Melissa, what you just typed in terms of habitat, keep it there because that's absolutely gets to the point of Liz
Right.
is making.
Okay.
Then on the
Yeah.
N27,
At the end of it.
Yes, and the 27, yep.
okay,
Like that?
okay. Now go back up to the top where it says where keystone, I would add where keystone and or endangered species habitat is identified.
Okay.
Or instead of endangered, I would recommend saying special status.
Oh.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yep.
So what are keystone and special status species?
I can take that. Keystone species are species that have a huge effect on their environment, way more than species usually have. So an example would be the prairie dogs. They have a really disproportionate effect on all the plants and animals that they interact with. So that's what a keystone species is. And then special status species is any species that has any kind of a status. So endangered would be an example of that, but there's also threatened species and species with state status. So that encompasses all of that.
Thanks,
Great
Jessica.
definition, Jessica.
Thank you, Jessica.
Hey, quick question from Jessica. Would the, let's see, the habitat also cover the corridors that we insist that people adhere to when they do a subdivision?
Yeah, corridors are habitat and they have been
Good.
Okay, thank you.
The corridors have been defined in a document and they are specifically mapped out. So I would recommend citing the Coconino County, I forget exactly the title, but citing that document and saying
Oh.
by this document. So it's not up to interpretation. And also it seems like maybe number 29 should be under this section since it's about corridors. Oh, here it is. Oh, it says that right there. Coconino County Wildlife Connectivity Assessment 2011 under number 29.
Right, and there was a different goal here. Species of greatest conservation need, and other special status species in their habitat are protected. So the first one was really about migration corridors. Maybe these can be combined.
Oh, okay.
I think they should be combined. I don't feel like where they're under, the headings they're under kind of makes that much sense.
So can we ask Jessica to help us work on wordsmithing this and bring it back to everybody?
Hey,
Jessica, can you help us?
Of course.
you got the right person there.
We have a huge population of elk out here. I just went for a hike in the snow the other day and there were over 45 elk
Nice.
in the Turkey Hills, but I think we need to preserve them too. And the, you know, the ones that are for hunters and wildlife watchers.
I think that they fall under Keystone, Bernice.
Oh, great.
I don't know that they're keystone, but they might be species of greatest conservation need. I can check that real quick.
I'd like to include them.
One thing we could add is Game and Fish classifies those as species of economic importance or something like that. And those are all species that are hunted. So elk, that's their classification. So we could add that.
In addition to greatest conservation need? Is that what you're saying, Jessica?
Yeah, so we could say
yes, yeah.
SGCNs and species of economic importance.
Yeah, so I just put a note over here. We're going to give Jessica a task to merge these into a better format and add that species of economic importance, such as elk and deer. Is everybody comfortable with that?
I hate to monetize them, but okay.
They've already been monetized, apparently.
I know. It just makes me sad.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be here if they weren't.
Yeah, they'd be.
Well, our native ones are gone anyway. Aren't these from Colorado and they got shipped into Winslow? So there you go. Right, Jessica? Is that right?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
So
I've heard a different story, Liz. Go ahead, Melissa.
Sorry.
Later, Brian.
Is the committee comfortable then with us working on combining these 3 policies and the goals and bringing it back to you?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Good idea.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So then moving on, open space. So there's a goal for, and these are our last 4. So the open space goal, the public lands within the planning area are preserved as open space to protect natural resources, provide plant and animal habitat, preserve scenic beauty, and provide recreational opportunities.
I like it.
Does that goal work?
That works.
Oh, I don't know. There's something going on with the font there. Okay, that goal works. And then policy 30, the Flagstaff area open space and greenways plan and the Flagstaff regional plan should be implemented in order to protect public open space.
Well, I have a little difficulty with implemented, but followed might be a better way to put it.
And if you all are interested, the Flagstaff open space and greenways plan is online. I have a copy as well with all the maps because all of the maps are not necessarily online.
That is great. We were looking for that last week. Thank you, Melissa.
It's not 100% online, but I do have a complete copy. It should be followed. Is that what you said, John?
Followed, that's a nice way of saying should be adhered to.
Mm-hmm.
It almost seems like that, and I hate to wordsmith here, but we should reverse the way that is written. And in order to protect public space, we should be referring to guidance from those 2 documents. Makes it read better to me, and I'm sorry I'm wordsmithing.
No apologies, Rob.
I can sign up
it
for
that way too.
Rob's got a good suggestion.
Okay, done.
I think you need a comma there after open space.
Thank you. Okay. So number 31, the regional growth boundaries should be adhered to in order to concentrate growth on the existing private lands. Do I need to bring the map up? Do you all know what this is referring to?
Well,
I don't.
Okay.
that is, I'm not too sure exactly what that means. I suppose that it anticipates land swaps occurring. But then it becomes private land anyway.
Let me show this. Let me show this map.
I don't really see that is a terribly meaningful statement.
Did this map display the area plan map?
Yes.
Okay, so it's very, I'm going to zoom in if my computer will let me. It's going very slow. Well, it's not, there we go. You can see around here, these dark lines. These are the open space boundaries, or rather the rural, excuse me, let me scroll down here. My computer does not like this large file.
Jess needs to get you a faster computer.
I don't know what's going on tonight. So you can see in the legend, the rural growth boundary here, and that's what you can see around all these parcels. And this was established in the Flagstaff regional plan that has been duplicated here. So it is setting up limits between the private land and then the forest land. And that's what that policy refers to.
So what you're saying is that that statement in the context of the regional plan and those boundaries is meaningful in that you want to limit.
And this
so
actually
that you
is
don't have
specifically
commercial development beyond those boundaries.
well, or even I think that that's referring to any development, and this is actually rural, not just regional. I think this is the regional plans.
Yeah, that needs to be in there.
Mm-hmm.
Concentrate
growth on existing private lands.
That now makes sense because we've referenced the regional plans rural border. So now that works.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that works.
All right, moving on to 32. The county is encouraged to work with the U.S. Forest Service to zone currently unzoned national forest lands within the planning area as open space to allow multiple forest uses and to discourage exchange or sale. I could show that map again. If you recall, some of the Forest Service land actually is zoned. Some of it is not zoned. Show that.
This is Bernice. Can we back up one to the 31 again?
Mm-hmm.
What about the regional plan's rural growth boundary should be adhered to in order to restrict growth on existing private lands instead of concentrating it?
No, I knew you were going to bring that up, Bernice, because it's saying if you're not going to do it in the Forest Service, we're going to encroach into private land and then lots will get smaller. Are you thinking that? Is that what you were kind of bringing up? Like, okay, if we're not going into the forest, we're going to go into private land.
I don't want more concentration on existing.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it should be to restrict growth to the existing private lands.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
Bernice,
thank you, Bernice. Yep.
Bernice, you got a gold star for that one.
Thank you.
Yes.
Restrict to, then we're good. Bernice, you like that?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, then back to 32 about work with the Forest Service to zone the portions of Forest Service that are unzoned, to zone them as open space.
Melissa, I have a question here.
Yeah.
I thought that the county was in charge of zoning those properties.
Brian.
Well, the county can't do it unless the Forest Service agrees to it.
Wait a minute, I'm not so sure about that. You can zone it, but as long as it is under Forest Service jurisdiction and owned by the government, then the zoning really doesn't mean anything. In the case of a land swap, the zoning is already there.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been done throughout the state. I know that Tucson and Pima County or Pinal County did this with their lighting ordinance. They included everything that was federal lands up where the observatory is. So you can do the zoning until it becomes private property, then it doesn't really apply. But when it becomes private property, yes, then it applies.
So the county is the one in charge of the zoning, and the Forest Service accepts or doesn't accept the zone as proposed?
No, it isn't a matter of accepting it. It is like an overlay, and the county has no way to enforce anything that is done on that property until it becomes private property or county property, for that matter.
That makes sense.
And it just lays it out. And so, hey, if we wanted to get that, this is how we would use it.
Yeah, and we
It's
had
just a
some
future plan for,
Yeah.
you know, what the county and the residents would like to see on Forest Service land. But I mean, John's right. It doesn't have any bearing on how the Forest Service currently operates and what they
Right.
do on it. It would only apply if there was an exchange or sale.
And just a quick comment on that. We looked at that back in 2013 when we started looking at changes to the lighting ordinance. And there was some thought about, well, just write it so it only applies to privately owned land at this time or when the ordinance was passed. But that leaves it wide open when a land swap occurs and you have no zoning. You could have Tokyo at night out there, right up there next to the peaks somewhere in a case like that. And by that zoning overlay, you avoid those kinds of problems.
So to come back to this, I think what we want to say is the county is encouraged to zone currently unzoned national forest lands within the planning area, ...
Bingo, Brian, you got it.
I would say, though, as a planner, that the county would probably not jump into zoning forest land unless we worked with the Forest Service on it.
Well, we've already done that in the past. And yes, that would be a good idea, but you've got two separate jurisdictions. I don't think the Forest Service has to approve it or not, nor can they disapprove it.
So it's in consultation with the U.S. Forest Service.
That would be the best way to word this as a policy.
So is the point of the policy to discourage land swaps? Is that really what we're trying to do
That's
here?
what the last part of the sentence says, to allow multiple forest uses and to discourage exchange or sale.
Well,
so
one way it will discourage it is that if you already have some form of zoning overlay over it, developers working with the Forest Service and initiating a land swap may think about it a little more seriously before they really go to work on the Forest Service to swap that land or our congressional delegation to authorize a land swap.
And that was my point, John, is that that's why this is so important, is it's discouraging the development of it.
And
because it's going to make it too difficult for the developer if it's already zoned as open space.
Or general or open space. And
general doesn't help, I don't think a whole lot, but open space.
Well, if you want to do a development, you're going to have to go for a change in the zoning, and that may also discourage some of it too. But at least you have some, the idea is to have some zoning that is there should a land swap occur.
So then this works, right?
Sure does.
There was a suggested word change. I think Brian had that. What was that, Brian?
Let me just try this one. The county is encouraged to work in consultation with the U.S. Forest Service in order to zone currently unzoned national forest lands, and then it remains the same.
Okay.
I don't even think you need to say consultation.
I think we're wordsmithing.
Yeah. Take the word consultation out, but just work with the Forest Service. See if they have any objections is what it's saying, or they have other problems with it.
So it now reads that the county is responsible for the zoning, not the U.S. Forest Service.
Well, and it
That-
says the county is encouraged to work with the Forest Service. So it does put it on the county to, collaborate with them in order to,
Got it.
yeah.
That works for me.
Okay.
Is that urging the county then to be proactive? And is that, I'm asking, I guess, Brian, who's talking the way I think I understand it, but we're urging the county essentially to get aware of this and to think about it and to be proactive.
That's what I'm intending, Harriet.
That's what I wanted to understand clearly. Thank you, Brian.
You're
I
welcome.
agree with you.
Well, let me tell you, I'd be happy to lobby anyone on the Board of Supervisors who's willing to listen to take care of the rest of that Forest Service property that isn't zoned.
Geronimo, are you on board?
I'm listening. Yes. I was on
Okay,
board,
this is for your ears, Geronimo.
I know. I'm
There's a-
listening.
All right, lest you dozed off. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
No, I'm here.
All right.
Okay, so
I
we're at
am
the
having
end.
technical difficulties with my camera, so that's why I'm just on volume.
All right.
Be easy on Supervisor Vasquez. He's a new guy on the board.
Right. Okay, so we're on number 33. This last one is probably going to need some work in reading it. So number 33, the county should actively seek participation in the land and natural resource planning and management processes of state and federal agencies administering public lands within the planning area. Should the county become aware of any public land exchange or sale, it should provide timely notification to the residents of the area. So this one seems to be written in a it seems to be confusing, and
You were generous. It seems to be.
it is confusing.
So let's back up and ask, when a land swap is going to occur, and this is what really the root of this again is the county consulted in that at all? By legal requirement?
I'm sure we would be. I haven't actually been involved in an actual land exchange, but I'm sure that based on the rules that the federal government needs to apply in order to approve a land exchange, that the county would be notified.
They would also have to have a public notification, right?
I'm not sure. I really don't know their exact requirements. So
Yeah, if you look in the federal register, that's probably where you'd find it. But recent experience with a land swap in the area of Happy Jack, basically it occurred without, at least to my knowledge, from the planning and zoning standpoint, it occurred without any consultation with the county about actually doing the land swap.
Yeah, this
Sure.
actually is trying to get two separate thoughts into one in
Mhm.
two sentences. So, it's really, it would take some wordsmithing to separate them, I think, properly.
I'm wondering, Jess, I want to come back to you. Is this something that the planning and zoning department could take and figure out?
Yeah, we would have our legal staff look at that. Actually, I'm trying to do some quick research on your previous one. When land goes through a land swap from Forest Service land, which Forest Service does not recognize zoning, they don't fall under our zoning ordinance. When a land swap takes place, that Forest Service land becomes county land, it comes in as the OS open space zoning district, which is why, as John and Jim will remember, which is why Happy Jack, as they have expanded, Happy Jack Lodge, and even some private land development in that area, adjacent to Happy Jack Lodge, When that land was swapped with Forest Service for private ownership, it came into the county, it came under the county's zoning ordinance as OS open space. So that kind of, in a way, negates the need for number 32 there.
And that's
but on
just
the question of,
sorry,
I'm sorry, Melissa.
just to clarify, that's a zoning ordinance.
Yeah, that's a zoning ordinance.
Right in our zoning. Okay.
Right. On the question on 33, on is there a required public hearing process, a required public input process
from the
for
Forest
land
Service.
exchanges? Right. From we should probably check with our legal staff on that.
Yeah, I don't. Okay. So
we're gonna make them do some work.
Would it be possible just to keep that last sentence and add the word potential in front of public land exchange?
So in other words, Bernice, you're suggesting removing the first sentence?
Yes.
Like that.
Does that make it more simple and clearer?
Certainly does that.
Yeah, it makes it clearer. I would want, Jess, I would still ask that you follow up with legal staff and just see what their interpretation of 32 and 33 are.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, and I know why we put this in here eons ago, but I'm not sure how you do timely notification to the residents about this and what that process would entail. So as I think it was Brian just said about contacting legal, that would be important. It's just back in the day, there was such a big threat of land exchange that we were really vigilant about it. So that's why all this is here.
Yeah,
thanks.
And I just have to say that Monica's absolutely right about that. It used to be pretty common practice here in Arizona. And there's been a lot of public sentiment expressed against that sort of thing. And I think our folks in Washington have been made very aware of that. So there hasn't been much of it. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen in the future. And what we've seen recently has been pretty limited in scope.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we'll get some clarification on that from legal staff and bring that back to you.
Yeah, and hey, one other thing, I'm going to add to what Jess mentioned about the land coming in as open space. If other uses are intended, it is going to have to go through the rezoning process.
Right.
For that. And that area around Happy Jack is a fairly recent example of that.
Okay, great. Well, that's the end of this chapter or this section. Did anyone have any thoughts in mind about what was not included? That wasn't covered? Natural environment, open space, parks, trails, and recreation.
I have a question, a generic question. If we say trails, I interpret that to mean a dirt trail. Is that a common interpretation?
Well, this is a good question. And I think that Liz and I were actually just talking about this recently because the transportation section actually has a lot of policies related to trails. And here are the ones, and then there are a few in this chapter as well. So there is overlap, but I think trails can be a combination of a dirt trail, it can be a bike path, it could be a multi-use, a paved multi-use separated path. It really depends on the system that you're looking at.
Melissa, wouldn't you say that when it becomes a minimum standard county road that it ceases to become a trail? And that's the differentiation point?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, John, that a road is obviously not a trail, but trails can be alongside roads. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, that sort of sums it up.
So roads are roads are for vehicles, trails are not
everyone
for
else.
vehicles. I mean, not motorized vehicles generally, unless it's an OHV designated trail, but
right.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's,
if this is defined elsewhere in more details, then as things are developed, I don't really think we need to get into that level of detail here, do we?
Dave, you cut out a little bit there.
Oh, I was going to say if the areas where trails and so on are more specifically addressed, we don't need to try to address the differences right here, do we? If trails and non-trails are defined elsewhere, more you're trying to build them, I'm not sure we need to go into that kind of depth.
Well, Dave's making a good point. The details aren't necessary here.
This is Liz. Yeah, this is Liz. This is what Melissa and I were trying to work on. There, every system has not true definitions of standard trails except for the Forest Service, what we were kind of concluded. Wasn't that right, Melissa? And so sometimes it depends on what project you're talking to as what standard of trail. And we're trying to get a true definition of trail. And it's been very hard because even FTI and the Futz Trail, that varies too. And Doney Park's plan about paths along roads, some of them will be paved and it talks about it, and some are just going to be dirt gravel trails that everybody uses everything. That is what we're having a problem with transportation. We're trying to find standards, but right now the only standard I believe that we thought we found was the Forest Service trails, and that is mainly equestrian, bike, and walking, and that's dirt.
Well, and I think we're mixing up a couple of different terms here because there's a standard to which trails are built, right?
Right.
That's actually a design standard. And then I think what Dave is referring to is, what is a definition of, and Brian too, what is a definition of a trail? Well, the trail, right. So there's a design standard, and there's a different design standard for a multimodal trail, design standard for a bike lane, design standard for a trail on Forest Service lands. They've got their own standards. The county doesn't have right now specific, like a separate document that lays out trail designs. We do for roads, but not for trail designs. So that's what that policy in the transportation section refers to. So yeah, when it comes to building like a multimodal trail, there are different options for that, but that is something for this plan to reference, but probably not identify specific standards for each of those types of systems, because that's going to be dependent on what it is that's being constructed.
Yeah, that's, I guess, the best definition you can say. It's kind of fuzzy to me too.
Because under this, like if you look at number 19 here, support new trail connections linking the planning area to these different systems. Now, the urban trail, as we know, is going to be a different design than the Forest Service, the metal trails, just because they are different standards. And so, the Forest Service most likely would not build an urban trail, or rather an urban type trail out in the forest. It's not going to be that design. Am I just confusing things?
No, I think I understand what you're saying. I've had a bit of confusion myself in understanding when's a trail, a footpath, and when does it become multimodal?
Well, and
there are various levels of multimodal, aren't there? Because the Futz Trail that's going to connect from Snowflake at that church to Sandy Seat, they want to put a pavement in there. That's going to be an urban trail, and that will be paved.
My point is that the definitions are not clear.
Right. I think so. Depends on what system you're in.
Well, and that's where looking at that map, I think will help to clarify that because, and we'll look at that. I guess, we need to finish it up and send it out to everybody. Because that's when the different types of where the different types of trails are identified. As far as what's already been planned and what's already in existence, what's already on the ground now, and then what's planned in the future.
So you're going to send that multimodal transportation plan out to all of us?
Well, remember, it's just a map.
Oh, okay. What about the plan itself? I think for our planning area, and for the survey and for the public speaking that we heard tonight, that people really want to keep this area rural and, having paved paths through the planning area take away from that rural country atmosphere.
So remember if you think about the multimodal path on Cokefield Road. Yeah. That's an example of that type of path. That wouldn't be appropriate everywhere, but there might be areas and where that is appropriate. And the multimodal plan was done in 2011. I can send everybody a link to that. I believe it is online, but it is, several years old now. So we've been, some of those systems have been built and some of them are not. Yeah.
Yeah, Bernice, just to calm your head on that, I didn't want, the one on Coachfield, everyone goes to the park and there's, that's why they paved it. But the one that's on Silver Saddle, that's all dirt and gravel, that's just for community. So there is different levels. It depends on how much it's used because you can't keep it just dirt because it gets ruts in it, just like on the mountain when too many horses and bikes go on it, that gets rutty. So I was very concerned about that too. I didn't want a lot of paved trails. But the Forest Service, Patrick, the rep, said the one from Snowflake to Sandy Seat has to because so many people want to go to Sandy Seat. They cannot, he would like to keep it dirt, but they have to do it. And then after that, it will be trails of dirt because they don't have the money, but also because it's not going to be as used as much. And it's really about usage and keeping that it doesn't get rutted. And then it's dangerous because there are he just said, it varies on the plan and how many people use it. So I know what you're saying, but the one on Coachfield has to be paved, what I was told. And then the one on Silver Saddle it's used a lot, but not that much. And the one at Sandy Seat is going to have to be paved because it is part of the Butts Trail. So it varies on where it is and how much it's going to be used.
That's why I think that the policy statement has to be generic rather than
specific.
Okay. Yeah, I understand that, Dave. I didn't mean to bring up this can of worms, but
it is a can of worms because there's so many different standards.
Yeah, the transportation section is definitely one of the more. It's probably that and the land use. It's a complicated. It's probably those two, your land use and transportation chapters, are the most complicated in terms of policies. So. We will look at that, I hope, next time. Does anyone else have any thoughts on this goal and these 3 policies?
Nope, I think we'd already closed those out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm fine with them.
Okay, so I think we are done then for tonight's task. I can go back to the PowerPoint real quick. Sorry. And so again, just the schedule real quick. We're in the middle of drafting, or hopefully coming to the conclusion of the goals and policies. And the self-guided driving tour, we have sent that information out. Has anyone, I know Harriet went out and drove it. Has anyone else been able to take a look and participate in that?
Not yet. I did put it on nextdoor.com though.
Okay, thanks.
I sent it out to one of my listservs here in Doney Park, Fernwood, Timberline.
Okay. Yeah, I've gotten a few requests for the tour packet, so we'll see. Hopefully it will generate some interest as an activity. And then on this schedule, we are hoping to move toward a virtual open house in May. And that's when we would show the community the goals, the vision, the goals, and the policies that you've been working so hard on.
Melissa,
Yes.
with the changes instituted today by Governor Ducey, are we still committed to just a virtual open house?
Great question. I need to get more information on that. I haven't seen that's a good question. I think that we'll at least have a hybrid available of some sort, to provide it both ways, but we need to find out what the direction will be from county management on opening up. I think we are starting to open up though.
Hey, Melissa, this is Jess.
Yeah.
My understanding is government buildings can still make their choices at their level of local government. So we'll have to see what the Board of Supervisors and puts out.
Thanks for that, Jess.
We'll just host it at a non-government building.
Okay, then with that, the next meeting would be on April 8th. We'll continue with the goals and policies. The last big sections to cover will be land use, transportation, and then the design review overlay. And then we can plan for the open house. And then with that, do we have any more public comment?
Brian, didn't you have something you wanted to cover?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Rob. Last time we got together and we said that the county should encourage people to clean their streets and roads and so forth. And I'd been thinking about this even prior, but I'd like to encourage us, the committee and the community folks that are with us tonight, to consider how would we go about creating something like every third Saturday of the month, folks gather at different designated sections, like the Peaks View Park, like maybe Rob, maybe your place, the Timberline Firearms, maybe Rural Activity Center, and that folks go out and clean up in that area. So we move it from a policy to an action.
I love the idea. I don't know how we do it in the confines of this committee. Although why we couldn't as a committee, if the county will allow us to assemble, go do a cleanup. I'm game for that.
Yeah, if you're going to do it as a committee, we would need to post it.
All the better. Maybe we get more participation.
Maybe it's some way to get people started doing it. And then we say to our neighbors, well, hey, why don't you put one together for 2 weeks from now?
Yeah, but we can do the groundwork and figure out how to do it and share that with the rest of the folks.
Okay. Other folks have any comments?
Follow
This is
it up
Sheila
with a
Walsh.
hot dog roast at Peaks View Park, sponsored by our county supervisors.
This is Sheila Walsh. I will continue to oppose added pavement to our Doney Park, Timberline and Fernwood area. The September 2011 edition of that multimodal transportation plan has 29 miles, of which a minimum of 19 are paved. It is not safe to be putting pavement along the areas where we ride horses because they were squeezing the horses in between the 10-foot wide pavement and people's field fence along their property where their dogs would try to bite us. So again, my public opinion is that I do not wish any of our existing trails to be paved over. And thanks for this work on this, you guys. Appreciate it.
Sheila, if I could ask, would you please write that up and send it to Melissa?
Yes.
So that we have a record of it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sure Jessica captured that also.
Yeah, I've got it in the notes.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Sheila.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Melissa, this is Russell. I had a question. I think it was Monica that was on the committee that developed the 2001 area plan. And I had a question about in the other policies section. There were some good policies in there and some that have been implemented, I think, but there was also the one about engine brakes, no engine brakes in the area of 89 as it comes into the area. And I was wondering if anybody had information on how that got into that 2001 plan, because apparently somebody had thought that that was a problem out here, and it does destroy the peace and quiet at times. So
So Russell, I live off of Kevin's Way, which is at the base of the hill, basically.
yes.
And and I'm the one that was on the 2001 group. And yeah, the reason we put that in there is because for most communities, when you come into them, there are those signs that say no engine brakes. And so we wanted to follow suit with that because engine brakes are used from time to time. There is a sign out there because I come down over that summit quite frequently to my house. And there is a sign that says no brakes. And so we did get that follow through. And it's very rare that I hear them go off, but they from time to time they do, but the best we can do is have that sign out there and
where
hope
is
for reinforcement.
Where is that sign located?
I couldn't tell you exactly where. I just know when I come over the summit and you're starting to come down the hill and the speed limit drops down to 55, there is a sign out there somewhere, unless it got ripped out this last winter. But
yeah,
there is one that says, and I only hear them from time to time, and I'm retired, so I'm out there most of the time.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the two. I did drive up to the entrance into Sunset Crater last week. So, and then I drove down the hill actually looking for a sign because I know that the city of Flagstaff has signs posted as you're going into the city limits. No.
Correct.
And in the wintertime, they're not, you don't hear as many trucks using those engine brakes as you do in the summer when there's more construction going on. And, you know, it sounds like something was done. So I just haven't seen it. And so I'm going to go up there next time I leave the house, probably. I'll go up and take a look for that sign. So I thank you for putting that in there. I've been out here in this area, kind of near 89 for 30 something years. And they're definitely annoying at times, especially in the summer when you have your window open in your bedroom and you hear one at 5 in the morning, you know? And just for everybody's information, out there at Sunset Crater, the lava flow trail, the first part of it is paved. And I imagine they paved that for people that don't want to be hiking off, but it's still called the trail. So there you go. So thank you, Monica, for getting that in there.
Thank you, everybody.
One other quick thought about why some trails are paved, and it has to do with ADA access.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where the map will, you know, be informative because it does use the different trails that have been identified by those different efforts and the different trails and the processes that go behind them. You have a different purpose, so they're not all going to be the same. But yeah, we'll look at that and I'll send that out to you all. Well, we'll try and get it out next week. Does anybody else have any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I'd like to say something.
Who's that?
Jeronimo Vasquez.
Oh, hello, Supervisor Vasquez.
Yeah. Hi. So I just want to, first of all, I just want to thank all of you for your hard work because I know this was an extra meeting, but this is how much this means to you to get this done before the next meeting. So that was real impressive. You're very thorough and I appreciate all the work that you're putting in there. I got a good sense of some of the needs and want to follow up on some of the requests. So if you requested something from me and put put me on the hot seat, I'm gonna come back and hit you up on how are we gonna do this. So be expecting some outreach on my part in the next couple of weeks. You know, trying to do it as quick as possible, but still, I'm still learning how to move and kind of make things happen. So bear with me, be patient with me, but I do want to follow up with the very specific requests of, you know, the volunteer group and even looking at the you know, the unzoned areas and whatnot. And then, you know, my personal kind of like interest is the sports complex. You know, my kids play soccer, and so I want to see something like that come to the Flagstaff area, and I think that could be the potential spot to do it. And so again, like I said, I will be engaged as much as I can. If you need anything or need my support on anything, please come talk to me. Go through Teresa, but she's working with my schedule. But I do want to be accessible, and I do want to help further these endeavors, and I will be reaching out to you soon. So thank you.
Hey, Geronimo. Monica Julian is the same as Monica Baker. We served on the North Country Board together. So if you ever want to give me a call.
Hey, how you
Same
doing? Nice to
person,
see
same
you.
voice, different name. But I will
Nice.
send Teresa an email to make sure you know how to get a hold of me. And anytime you want to chat, let me know.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that.
You bet.
Okay, everybody. Any final public comment or any other committee thoughts?
And with that, we're adjourned.
Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you on the 8th.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Take care,
Great job,
everybody.
Melissa. Thanks.
Yes, great
you.
job as always.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Hey,
Bye-bye,
Melissa,
everyone.
Yes.
when you have time, could you send me what do I want to ask for? Just the goal statement